Welcome back, guys. Today we are going to discuss about the issue between the government and the Twitter in depth, of course. Diving straight into it, what does the government want? The first point is traceability. Now the government wants it to happen just because to ensure and find the origin of the message. Now the positive aspect of this is if there is a fake news, the government will find the culprit and punish him accordingly. The question arises here is how will you decide it's fake news? For example, someone is speaking out his thought about any issue in the region which is against a certain group's belief system and they decided to take action against that person. Then who and how will decide if it's fake news or not? The negative aspect of this point is, what if the movement against the alleged fake/hate spreading person is politically motivated, either by the opposition or the ruling party? One person is too small to stand in front of them. The only option left will be to move to the court for a solution, which arises another question, does courts have time for this? The second point is accountability/know your customer. One of the law of the IT Act says that the firms have to appoint a chief compliance officer and a nodal contact person. Now what's positive in it? Number one, it will help counter any illegal posts as soon as possible and take it down. Number two, someone will be held responsible. When people fear that they will be caught and prosecuted for spreading hate/fake news, obviously the number will decline. Think of it as a filtration process. The posts will bypass through more and more scanning processes. The second law says if some comment is deemed offensive by a court or a government, social media should take it down within 36 to 48 hours. Now, this is contradictory. How? If the courts has to intervene, then it's fine because they will go through a legal process and both sides can put their points. But what in the case of the government? For example, any party X is offended by a post of any common man. Can the party claim that the post is defamatory for Government of India? In short, does the ruling party is equals to the Government of India? Because if that's the case, anything said against that ruling party will be against the Government of India. Next, talking about KYC. WhatsApp and Facebook already has a KYC factor for customers who want to use their services, but it is not necessary for average users right now, especially that financial services. Two questions here. Do we, the average user, also have to fill the KYC requirement? If the answer to the first question is yes, will we not be giving more details to these platforms which eventually may make our data susceptible for risk at the times of company data breach, which is not uncommon these days? Next topic is what does the social media says? First point, decryption. The USP of companies like WhatsApp, Signal and Telegram is end-to-end encryption technology. Recently, when WhatsApp announced changes in its policy, a lot of users around the world switched to Signal. This implies people are concerned about their privacy. Positive point of decryption. The only positive thing decryption will bring is that the originator of the file will be caught easily. The negative aspects are, to find the originator, it has been proposed that the original message should contain metadata of the originator by two ways. Number one, in which the receivers can see the information about the originator clearly. The second is, the information of the originator should be kept in an encrypted format later to be decrypted by the authorities or the companies. In both the cases, the originator's details will be accessible. First, let us understand how encryption works. Both the sender and the receiver has two sets of keys. Number one, the public, accessible to your contacts. Second, the private, only you can access it. Both the keys are generated while you download and start using the app. Together they are called the shared keys, which is generated constantly. Now if A wants to send message to B, he uses B's public key and encrypts the message by his public key and sends it to B. Now B can decrypt the message with his matching private key and read the message. Between this conversation, an exploiter can look there has been an exchange of message, but technically it is impossible to read the message without the shared keys. There are certain methods introduced around the world to decrypt these types of messages. The most relevant that I found is backdoor access. It comprises of two steps or two ways. Number one, the social media company should store all the private keys of all the users, which will allow them to access any encrypted message and then deliver these messages to whatever authority is asking for it. It also have certain negative points. Number one, in order to save the data, the companies have to store them somewhere. Now, this somewhere can be a server. If somehow some hacker gets access to all these files, the data of all the users becomes compromised. Number two, after getting all this data, if someone decides to manipulate your data in any way, there is a chance you may not know. The user can be charged for a crime which he might not commit. The second type of backdoor access is that companies which makes these softwares deliberately build a weakness or a flaw in their system which will eventually help the law agencies to access the criminal. But if there is a flaw, there is a pretty good chance that the hacker can exploit it as well, which may help him to manipulate any user's data. For example, a reporter found out that pharmaceutical company is using illegal methods to expand their products in the market and decides to take action against it. And he then files a complaint against them. The company then hires a hacker to get into the reporter's social media account with the help of these backdoors and forge some fake news or posts which are against the interest of the country. Now, what the reporter will be facing will be bigger than what company is facing, or simply they can threaten the reporter to take back the complaint. This is off topic, but I think you should know it as well. Why do we need competition in companies, or why there should be multiple companies? Number one, the users will have an option to choose. The second, the competitor will try hard to get more customers. In short, the users will be benefited. Third, less chances of any illegal practices because companies will have the fear of losing out. Now, if that's all true, a diverse competitor or diverse companies in a country will help users around the world. Promoting Indigenous, it is clear that every Indian wants its products to move around the world, and so do I. But at what cost? If the product is promoted by banning something else, how is this right? What I'm trying to say is controlling something versus expanding the other is not the right competition. Let us come to diversity. Take for an example, India bans Twitter. Suddenly, who is the new Twitter of India? Abiding by all the rules of the government. There are certain points I want to make here. Number one, how will one make an American or an European user to use it? They still have their Twitter. Number two, apply this to all social media platforms hypothetically. How will an average foreign user will get to know if something wrong is going in our country? Which arises the question, why do they need to know? From time to time, we have seen how social media posts helped people living across the globe to receive help. For example, what China is doing in Hong Kong, the whole world saw it and they took a stand against it. Whether it is successful or not is what time will tell. But suppose all the people around the world oppose it, then their respective governments will also have to oppose it, which in turn will create international pressure on China. And international pressure is something every country hates. For your information, I want my country's products to grow as much as they can, but if it's in a right way, it feels good, isn't it? Isn't it, like Sadhguru? These laws are not limited to Twitter, WhatsApp, or any other social media platforms only. Instead, every internet platform will be regulated, which brings back our question, who and how will decide how and what should be regulated? For example, abusive language is not allowed in television, but on the internet it is widely spread. The only thing to stop it right now is to put disclaimer at the beginning of the episode. Will these restrictions be applied to such extents on internet as well? This may lead to moral policing of the internet. India versus rest of the world. Now, opposing a particular law does not mean opposing the country itself. Some people are saying these are foreign invaders who's trying to ruin our culture. But we have to understand who is going to be benefited by these kinds of fights. Take for example, a few years back, there was a fight between PewDiePie and TSeries on who gets the more subscribers. After some time, this fight became India versus the rest of the world. PewDiePie's followers said we should not let India win, and Indian followers took that so seriously that they made TSeries the most followed channel over the YouTube. Now what I'm asking is, who here is benefited? We the Indians or the foreigners? I think the ones who are benefited are PewDiePie and TSeries, and the rest of us are at the same position as we were. Second type of example I want to give is Ramdev versus modern medicine. Baba Ramdev came out and said something about the allopathy, to which the doctors started reacting and criticizing Baba Ramdev. Now the doctors were criticizing Baba Ramdev and his type of advertising. In return, Baba Ramdev's followers started saying this is an attack on our Ayurvedic culture. Now the question here is, how does one person represents the whole culture? Ayurvedic culture was much before than Baba Ramdev. The second point is, the doctors were criticizing Baba Ramdev and his company, not Ayurveda. What I'm trying to say is, look for the narrative one is trying to create. Every fight is not India versus the rest of the world. It can be about right versus wrong. One thing I wanna say, सरकार हमने चुनी, ट्विटर भी हमने डाउनलोड किया. एज ए यूज़र हमें ये देखना है कि हमारा कोई नुकसान ना हो. इन दोनों को जितना लड़ना है लड़ने दो. देश का मतलब सिर्फ बाउंड्री नहीं होता या न्यूज़ चैनल में बैठ जाने वाले पॉलिटिकल एनालिस्ट ही देश के बारे में सही सोचें, ऐसी बात नहीं है. देश का मतलब उसमें रहने वाले लोग भी हैं और उन लोगों के रेस्पेक्टिव इंडिविजुअल राइट्स भी हैं. इन राइट्स को मैनिपुलेट करना भी गलत है, चाहे वो सरकार करे या ट्विटर. देयर आर सर्टेन सॉल्यूशंस आई वांट टू गिव both to the companies and the users and the government as well. Number one, more aware user. Both social media platforms and government have resources to train the people about what's manipulative or not. For example, put out some comparison between the hate speech and correct speech, or compare two comments where one is derogatory or pejorative and other is a criticism. There is enough technology present for social media platform to use some algorithms where the users will be identified with abusive words being marked while typing so that he can think before sending it. Number two is for end-to-end encrypted messages. Sooner or later the authorities are going to get a viral message. The government should make a portal where the authorized personnel declare that messages is fake or not. The social media companies should advertise the portal so that the people can check for the viral messages themselves. Now what will it do? For example, there are 100 people in a WhatsApp group. Now a message drops into a group which is forwarded many times. Whether it is fake or not, no one knows. Suppose out of those 100 people, 5 people think it's fake and they decided to check it on the portal. Suppose it comes to be fake. Now out of those 5, there is a chance that one might go and report about it. It will help the rest of the 100 people to know about it, and it will help to break the chain of viral messages. Now, how will you find the culprit? This is the drawback in these solutions, that you may not know the originator of the file in an end-to-end encryption method, but it raises some questions. Number one, is it wise to put all at risk to catch a few? Number two, ones who are forwarding the messages, are they aware and conscious of what they are spreading if the message is fake? If yes, aren't they also responsible for it? All the tech giants save our data. They track us all the time until we manually stop them. They share our data between each other in the name of giving us better experiences, better services. From time to time, we have found out various data breaches which contained sensitive user data. To my knowledge, these social media platforms have created enough chaos to be blocked. I personally do not care if Twitter or Facebook are getting blocked or regulated. But the fact is, some people do, because it empowers them. What I want from both the companies and the government is that care for us, because we the users and the voters can make or break you. These are the types of regulations that government should put on these social media platforms. Number one is what user data you guys are sharing. Number two, is the user being informed or even know what you are sharing or send them reports about it. Number three, if there has been a leak, put fines on those companies. 2 points that government made was correct according to me. Number one, if you delete someone's account, give them proper explanation. Don't just say it's manipulative. Number two, deploy some local officers to resolve the issue as soon as possible. And that's all I wanted to say. I hope no one is being offended by it. There are certain examples that I have given are hypothetical. Don't take them seriously. And if you like the video, please share, comment and subscribe.